Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
We thank the Most High Aliyahu for bringing us out to come together in fellowship and commune on another set apart Shabbat. We thank you, Jeff, for coming out today to be with us and, to fellowship, with one another, your brother and sister, and Yahuwah. We thank you for what he's done for us all week long. We thank you for how he's kept our bodies healed, how he's kept us clothed in our right mind. We thank you how he's protected us from all hurt, harm, and danger. And we just want to give the Father praise for that. And at this time, we're going to go ahead and open up our service. We're going to have our blowing of the shofar by our Zarzakan, Aliyahu, and immediately afterwards, Koti Shema is going to lead us in prayer, and we'll get into our lessons. At this time, we're going to turn and face the east as we begin to pray. You remember the scripture last week? What was the second key? I get next time. So at this time, we're going to have the Lord of our shofar, our chief elders, Zarzakan, Aliyahu, and afterwards, we're going to have prayer. Hallelujah. Up to Isaiah 53, but in order to adequately understand Isaiah 53, like I said, we're going to have to go back to the Garden of Eden and look at some things and move forward so we can actually see what's going on. Because oftentimes we read things and we don't understand that what you're reading when it comes to the nation of Yashra'al, it all started back at Bereshit or Genesis. And like I said earlier, how our entire reading and our entire culture was built off of a sacrificial system. That's what it starts off in Eden. You have a sacrifice that takes place. You have an atonement that takes place at the very beginning of the book. And also, likewise, you have an atonement that takes place throughout the book until the fulfillment of that comes into fruition. Now, today's lesson is going to require some reading. We're going to do a lot of reading, and we will just get a little more understanding of what's taking place with the nation of Yashra'al and how it's imperative that we understand that the role that Hamashiach Yahushua fulfills is everything to the nation of Yashra'al. And oftentimes we read in the past, we read about all these different offerings, all the sacrifices, and we look at them literally, not knowing that these things were fulfilled by Hamashiach himself. And so when we get into Isaiah, by the time we get to Isaiah 53, it's very important that you know what's going on, because you'll come across several words, and a lot of these words, when we go back and look at the Hebrew, they correlate with not only just one offering, but many offerings. And so we're going to go back and look at these things and get an understanding of what's going on. Because most people, it's hard for them to understand Isaiah 53 because they don't understand the offerings and the fulfillment that Hamashiach Yahushua comes to play in these things. And so you're looking at one particular offering, the Yashra'al, when actually he's fulfilling several sacrifices, several offerings. But you have to know what's going on. So we're going to do, or we're going to take a look at these things. And let's start off, let's go to Exodus, the 20th chapter, and the 24th verse, and the 29th verse. Exodus or Shemot, 20, verse 24, and verse 29.
Chapter what?
22.
20.
The book of Shemot, or Exodus 20, verse 24. An altar of earth you shall make unto me, and shall sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings, and thy peace offerings, thy sheep and thy oxen, in all places where I record my name. I will come unto you, and I will bless you.
He said, where should these things be done? An altar, and where shall this altar be? Read it again one more time.
Exodus 20, verse 24. An altar of earth
Altar of earth
you shall make unto me, and shall sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings,
shall sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings,
and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen, in all places where I record my name.
in all places where I record my name. How many places did the Most High record his name? And where's that place? Jerusalem. So if we get technical and honest with ourselves, the actual keeping of the Moreh or the Moedim, can that be really done here in America? No. In the place where what? Where he placed his name. Okay, so we're all good on that. That's why when it comes to these things, we commemorate or we remember these things. And it's good that we teach the history to our children and, to our families and loved ones, that we should always keep these things in mind and remember what Yahuwah has done for us. So when we look at that, let's look at now, let's go look at one of the offerings he speaks of. Let's go to I'll tell you what, let me ask you something. Why are these things important? What is actually going on with the nation of Yashra'al, and why all of these sacrifices? Why all of these offerings? They committed sin. What sin in particular, though? Did these offerings in this sacrificial system that he gave them, or maintenance system, did it come before or after Moses came down off of Sinai? Came down after. So why after? What happened? Go to Gad?
To make the relationship?
Okay, so what happened with the golden calf? What act actually happened?
They were
Okay, they started worshiping, but what had taken place by them worshiping the golden calf?
forgetting who it is.
What happened prior to them worshiping the golden calf?
He gave his name to the calf, really. Because he said he used to be the Elohim that brought us out of Egypt.
Right, but I'm saying, but what happened with Israel and Yahuwah prior to the golden calf? Had they not entered into a covenant? That was the sin. And what was brought upon Israel as a result of that sin? Death. Okay, y'all. Death. By them committing that sin, death came upon Israel. And he was going to kill all of Israel. But Moses interceded. So let's go back to the garden. Did Adam break a covenant? What happened as a result of that covenant being broken? Okay, but he didn't just get escorted out of the garden. But what did the Most High tell them was going to happen as a result of the disobedience if they did something that he asked them not to do?
That's when they brought sacrifice and
But before they did not tell Adam if they ate of a certain tree, they would surely what? Die. Death as a result of what? A sin. Or most people say, they say, well, you can't show where Adam broke the covenant. But yes, we can. Matter of fact, get Hosea, the 6th chapter. Let's start at verse 6.
Hosea 6 verse 6. For I desired mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of Elohim more than burnt offerings. But they like men have transgressed the covenant.
It says, they like men have what? Transgressed the covenant. What do you get when you go look up that word, man? It says, they like Adam, what? Transgressed the covenant. So that was a covenant that Adam had broken. It may not have been a blood covenant, but that was a covenant that Adam had broken. And as a result of breaking that covenant, death came about. Sin brings about what? Death. What?
So in this instance with Adam, when he said when he eat from the tree, the consequence was death, is that related to his descending? The
Yeah.
fall of Adam?
Yeah, it relates to his descending and actually dying. Because if Adam had not sinned by listening to his wife or the woman, none of us would be dying. So what we have now, we have what is called a whole or burnt offering. You also have to realize that offerings can be required, or you have what are called voluntarily a voluntary offering or required offering. Some offerings were free will offerings. Others were required. You had to make these. So we're going to look at these. And we discussed last week, a burnt offering is also called what? What's another name for a burnt offering?
Sin offering?
And what's the purpose of a burnt offering? Even though it burns, the aroma of the smell is what? It ascends. It ascends. It goes up before the Father. Let's look at Leviticus 1 and 9.
Leviticus 1 verse 9. But his inwards and his legs shall he wash in water, and the priest shall burn all on the altar to be a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire of a sweet savor unto Yahuwah Elohim.
Okay, this offering is to be what? A sweet savor. Unto who? So when we look at this, remember we have what is called a burnt offering or an ascending offering. You're also going to realize that there are 3 different sin offerings. Also keep that in mind. Remember when the Hamashiach spoke to them, he said, "Don't touch me, for I have yet not what? Ascended where? To the Father." Why did he have to ascend before the Father? To the Father. We'll get back to that. Right, it's sacrifice. Let's go to Matthew 3 and 17.
Matthew 3 verse 17. And lo, a voice from Shamayim or heaven saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased."
This is my beloved Son, what? I'm well pleased. Why is he saying that?
Because he was pleased with the offering, sacrifice.
Say it again now.
Because he was pleased with the sacrifice, the offering.
Okay, and so now what's taking place at this scene right here? Why is he saying this is my son who will be? What's going on here? Yeah, he's letting them, everybody know. Who is the everybody he's letting know? Yashra'al. Okay, let's go up a few verses before that.
Isn't this when his son ascended up to it?
Yeah, let's read. As a matter of fact, let's go up to verse 1.
Matthew 3 verse 1. In those days came Yahuwah or John the Baptist, preaching in the wilderness of Judea.
In those days came who? John. And what did John get ready to do?
Preaching the word.
He's fixing to make an announcement, right? Let's read.
Verse 2, and saying, repent ye, for the kingdom of Shamaim, or heaven, is at hand. For this is he that was spoken of by the prophet Isaiah, saying, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of Yahuwah, make his path straight. And the same John had his raiment of camel's hair, and a leathern girdle about his loins, and his meat was locusts and wild honey. Then went out to him Jerusalem and all Judea and all the region round about Jordan, and were baptized of him in Jordan, confessing their sins. But when he saw many of the Pharisees and Sadducees come to his baptism, he said unto them, O generation of vipers, who have warned you to flee from the wrath to come? Bring forth therefore fruits meet for repentance, and think not to say within yourselves, we have Abraham to our father. For I say unto you, that Elohim is able of these stones to raise up children unto Abraham. And now also the axe is laid unto the root of the trees. Therefore, every tree which bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. I indeed baptize you with water unto repentance, but he that cometh after me is mightier than I, whose shoes I am not worthy to bear. He shall baptize you with the Ruach and with fire, whose fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge his floor and gather his wheat unto the garner, but he will burn up the chaff with the unquenchable fire. Then cometh Yahushua from Galilee to Jordan unto John to be baptized of him. But John forbade him, saying, I have need to be baptized of you, and cometh you to me? And Yahushua answered, said unto him, Suffer it to be so. Suffer it for it to be so now, for thus it becometh us to fulfill all, to fulfill all righteousness. Then he suffered him. And Yahushua, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water, and lo, the Shamaim, or heavens, were opened unto him, and he saw the Ruach of Elohim descended like a dove, and lightened upon him. And lo, a voice from heaven saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased.
So, what we have here, now you see the dialogue that John is having. The reason we have to do, and the reason we're discussing Isaiah 53 is for that exact same dialogue. Do you not know how many people try to discount or disqualify what Hamashiach did for the nation of Yashra'al? They go too far to say that Israel is the suffering servant and not Hamashiach Yahushua. And they're doing the exact same thing. How do we know that? Did John just say to them, don't say amongst yourselves about being Abraham's seed or descendants of children? That's the one trump card Israel has always tried to use, is Abraham. Not knowing that that covenant that he made with Abraham, you still broke the covenant. That's why we emphasized in an early lesson earlier, when we first started this series, how I showed you how circumcision was attached to the Abrahamic covenant. But then I showed you in the scripture, after that very day that they broke that covenant, when Moses came off of Sinai, they built the golden calf. that entire 40 years they were in the wilderness, guess what they didn't do? Circumcised. They went 40 years without circumcision. But they were yet the children of Abraham. And we know circumcision was attached to the Abrahamic covenant. Why weren't they circumcised? Because the covenant was broken. That covenant didn't do them any more good after then. It was broken. So you can't circumcise to a broken covenant. A covenant that required circumcision. Now you broke it. The circumcision is useless at that point. It does you no good. So you see now everybody wants to use Abraham as their trump card to bypass and elude and go all the way around Hamashiach. It's very important, and it's imperative that you see and understand what Hamashiach did for the nation of Yashra'al, because Yahuwah set this thing up one way. The only way you can get back into covenant relationship with Yahuwah the Father, it has to be through his son, Hamashiach Yahusha. Did he not tell you, no man coming to the Father but what? But by me. And if you get in, or you make it till you get in any other way, you'll have to what? A thief? The Father set it up that way. You're not going to bypass and overlook what his son did for you. Hamashiach willingly paid the price for the nation of Yashra'al. Remember now, the only reason we gave these offerings so that they could die in our place, or die in our, instead of us. We were supposed to be the ones that were supposed to be sacrificed and one to be put to death. But he allowed us to have something. He gave us something to stand in our place and die in our stead. Let's take a look at Philippians, the 2nd chapter, the 5th verse through the 11th.
Philippians 2 verse 5. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Yahushua HaMashiach, who being in the form of Elohim, thought it not robbery to be equal with Elohim, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Wherefore Elohim also hath highly exalted him, and given him a name which is above every name, that at the name of Yahushua HaMashiach every knee should bow, of things in heaven, and in things in earth, and things under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Yahushua HaMashiach is sovereign to the glory of Elohim the Father.
Now, if we look at verse 8, it's saying, being found in fashion as what? A man. He humbled himself and became what? Obedient unto death. What did the Father want out of the nation of Yashra'al all the time? Obedience. Obedience. Did he not say obedience is better than sacrifice? Had they been obedient, there would have been no need for the sacrifice. It said, and became obedient unto death, even the death of, they have written the cross. But we know it was a tree on stage.
Exactly.
It said, wherefore Yahuwah also hath highly exalted him and given him a name which is above every name. So what we're looking at here is who's actually making this offering. Because remember, he said, abide in what thou hast prepared for me. So Yahuwah is actually taking his son and he's presenting him on behalf of who? The nation of Yashra'al. We know the Father's doing this because of the prayers of his son. What did he say? Yahuwah, why hast thou what? Why hast thou forsaken me? We know that from Abraham and Isaac. Abraham did what? He took his what? His only son. And he willfully was going to give his son. But Yahuwah stopped him and what? Abraham looked up and he heard Yahuwah's voice. He told him, look behind him. That was what? A ram in the bush. So when we go into these offerings, now all of a sudden, you're going to see there are specific animals that are required for these offerings. They're going to be a specific age, a specific gender. The type, the age, the gender, it all play an important part of understanding what's going on. Anybody know the difference between a sheep and a lamb?
Is a lamb a young sheep?
A lamb is a young sheep. So why is Yahuwah always depicted as a lamb? If a lamb is a young sheep, what does youth always depict or denote? Innocence. What's a female sheep called? Y'all know what a female sheep is called? Somebody Google it right quick. Anybody know what a male sheep is called? Yeah, you're right. And who? And what's a male sheep called? Huh? A male sheep is a ram. So when Abraham told, when the father told Abraham to look behind him, and he saw a ram caught in the thorn and the thistles by the horns of his head, it's all depicting something. So if it's a ram, you know automatically it's a particular what? It's a certain offering. One offering required a bull. One required a lamb of a certain age, or a ram, a goat, turtle dove, pigeon. Why? That's what we're going to cover all of these offerings, because once you get an understanding of these things, all of them are going to enlighten you, and you're going to see everything how Mashiach fulfilled.
And it's also interesting, when Abraham and Isaac was going to the mountain to sacrifice, Isaac asked Abraham, where's the offering? Or where's the sheep? The offering, he said,
And what will Abraham respond?
Provide himself.
He said,
provide himself an offering.
yeah, he will provide himself. Is that not what he did for the nation of Yashra'al? He gave his own, let me tell y'all something. Yahuwah gonna test him behind us. In Israel and outside of Israel. But he already told you judgment begins where? The household of faith. Here it is, Yahuwah gonna take his only begotten son. He gonna sacrifice his son to bring a hard-headed, stiff-necked people back into covenant relationship with him. But you know the one thing about the ones he bring back into covenant relationship with him? They won't be hard-headed and stiff-necked. Because that proves he's gonna get rid of them, wipe them out. They're gonna be wearing Jordan brand. 23. We said 2/3 shall be cut off. You're gonna know who they are. Because let me tell y'all something. That mess he dealt with in the wilderness the first time, don't think he's going back through that again. And I often think about when we read that. Do you know how hard-headed and stiff-necked and rebellious we had to be as a people in order to cause another man not to be able to even go into the land promised? Moses didn't make it in because of Negroes. I sure wish we went on Comcast so I can use that other word. Yeah. It has more impact. Let me tell you something. That's a hard-headed group of people. Y'all see today what we're dealing with? Only thing I do turn on the news. Just shooting and robbing and stealing, just doing all kind of madness. And a lot of times we want to blame it on the system. But all the time it's not the system, that's just in you. That's in us to be because we have a sinful nature. And if you're a believer, just read the book. The other nations were causing Israel to be wicked. Matter of fact, the Father said we were called the other nations to be wicked. That's why I'm going to be very selective when we get up out of here. If I see your spirit ain't right, you can't hang with me. Because I'm not fixing to be chopped off in the wilderness. Not over no foolishness. I'm like, no, bro, you go over there with them. This is a set apart group here. We're not about that foolishness. Whatever they say, that's what we're going to do. Because let me tell you something. One thing the nation of Yashra'al has to a fault is we're the only people always think that we got a way to beat the system or get around a certain event what has been already established. Can't you imagine that the leaders that Yahuwah set up, they're telling us to do one thing? You know, you always got that raw brother, man. You got to do that, man. Please. I'm going to go on the rules. Come on with me. We can do this, right? We can catch up and do that later on. But you ain't got to do that no more because if you do it this way, you're going to save time and money. And watch what happens. All of a sudden, you're going to just see the ground just split. And a whole bunch of Negroes just drop down into it. Because I'm telling you how it's going to go. Believe that. Because didn't he do it the first time? Did he not open up the earth and swallow 20 and 30,000 at a time? We're the same people. We're the exact same people, so you know what's going to happen again. That's what he said, 2/3 of my people shall be cut off. They ain't even going to get in. Let's go to Yehukanah 4:34. John 4:34.
Yochanan or John 4, verse 34. Yahusha saith unto them, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work.
He said, my meat, what?
My meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work.
To do the will of him that has sent me, and to do what? Finish his word. I bet y'all said, what does that have to do with sacrifices? If anybody ever looked at that word meat, what does it mean? Anybody got it?
Food literally or figuratively, especially ceremonially, articles allowed or forbidden by the Jewish law, meat, vegetables.
Vegetables. So, you know what's a literary figure, especially ceremonial? That's what sacrificial meats come into play. You say something?
No, it's a word that you said, ceremony.
So what did he come to fulfill? The sacrifice. Right? And so as we read and continue to read, we're going to go into these things, and you're going to see how he fulfills all of them. Let's go to Yehukanah 6:38.
Yehukanan or John 6 verse 38. For I came down from Shamayim or heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him that sent me.
Keep on reading.
And this is the Father's will, which hath sent me, that of all which he hath given me, I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again at the last day. And this, continue. And this is the will of him that sent me, that every one which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day.
You keep on.
The Jews then murmured at him, because he said, I am the bread which came down from Shamayim.
Go ahead.
And they said, is not this Yahusha, the son of Yahuseph, whose father and mother we know? How is it then that he saith, I came down from Shamayim or heaven? Yahushua HaMashiach therefore answered and said unto them, murmur not among yourselves. No man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him, and I will raise him up at the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they shall be all taught of Elohim. Every man therefore that have heard and have learned of the Father cometh unto me. Not that any man hath seen the Father, save he which is of Elohim, he hath seen the Father. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me hath everlasting life. I am that bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. I am the living bread which came down from Shamayim or heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. The Jews therefore strove among themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? Then Yahushua HaMashiach said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man, and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. Whoso eateth my flesh, and drinketh my blood, have eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwelleth in me, and I in him. As the living Father hath sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eateth me, even he shall live by me.
Hallelujah. So what's going on here? Now, when we get to these offerings, you also going to see what is called a grain offering. You're going to see where there are loaves that are what? That are baked, some with leaven, some with not, that are also offered, and they're also eaten. You're going to see also where some of the offerings, we take what? The wine, pour it on the offering. So if you don't understand what's going on, now I know it sounds, Hamashiach doing a lot of talk there, right? About eating and drinking, eating his body. But we don't, all the reason it sounds confusing to us, no one has ever made us go back and read the offerings, the different types of offerings, and look at what's required. You know, if the nation of Yashra'al sins have to be atoned for, do we think the priests were perfect? Did not they have to make an offering to atone for their sin? Or say, what is the requirement for the priest? What should be eaten by the priest? What cannot be eaten by the priest? What is to be offered up to Yahuwah? See, the higher your position was, what? The more expensive or the greater your offering had to be. We had to bring a lamb or a ram or whatever. If you were dirt poor, you could bring what? Pigeon dove, turtle dove or pigeon, and even flour. So what you see is the priest himself had to bring what? A bull. You know, a bull is worth a lot more than a lamb, a pigeon, a dove, a turtle dove. So there were different requirements, and it's imperative that we go back and read, get to understand. I know it might seem like it's a boring read, but we're going to have to do it because it's going to open up everything for you. That's why I just want to kind of introduce them today, but we're going to do a more thorough look inside of these offerings. So by the time we get to Isaiah 53, you just read it, you can pinpoint and know at what part he's fulfilling this, and which offering this is, which offering that is. If that's the problem with Isaiah 53, nobody's going back to take time to read and to see what's going on. He did more than just atone for our sins. There's a whole lot going on in Isaiah 53. There's a whole lot going on with Hamashiach. But all of this sounds strange to people when they read it, when he said, eat my body, drink my blood. If you go back and understand the sacrifices and what they were required, none of this would be foreign. All of it makes sense. Let's go to Romans 12 right quick. But you notice when we were reading how everything Hamashiach was talking about was what? The Father's will. What he came to do. So what did he come to do? The Father's will. You notice how he didn't have any reservation? He totally subjected himself to the Father and submitted himself to the Father doing his will. That's what your burnt offering is about. It shows you the willingness and the dedication of Yahushua to his Father. Let's go to Romans 12, 1 and 2.
Romans 12, verse 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of Elohim, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, set apart, acceptable unto Elohim, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Elohim.
Good and acceptable, perfect will of Elohim. Now this is Apostle Shaul talking to who? Israel, right? He said, present your body what? A living sacrifice. Why would he say living sacrifice? Say it again, Coach.
You have to do it now while you're living.
Yeah, because what's not required anymore? Animal sacrifice is not required anymore. Because what came along with the animal sacrifice? Death. Which was what?
The wages of sin. The wages of sin.
The wages of sin was also what? It was a curse. Remember when he said, when Paul talks about removing the curse of the law? What was the curse of the law? It was death. Which law was he talking about? The sacrificial. He was talking about the sacrificial law. This is why he's saying now, present your body a living sacrifice, set apart and acceptable to Yahuwah. Why is he saying set apart and acceptable to Yahuwah? Under the law, how did the sacrifice have to be? Spotless and what? Without blemish. The sacrifice hasn't gone anywhere. Now you're the sacrifice, but you're a living sacrifice. Everything was what? It was done as a foreshadow to point us towards something that would be greater in the long run. Now we are a living sacrifice, set apart. And how do we make ourselves set apart? Yeah. By what? Yeah, by keeping his commandments. Well, I know you're supposed to say, well, we can't keep the commandments. Yes, we can. Because the foundation of our marriage and covenant was what? It was 10. Now name me one of the 10 you can't keep. I can name you about a good 50 of the other ones you can't keep because you're not in Jerusalem, first of all.
Yep.
But name me one of those 10 you can't keep. I know that hit like a sack of bricks, isn't it? Our covenant was based and built upon 10, not 316. Let's go look at when we look at the burnt offering, it was to be what? A male sacrifice or a male? Anybody know why? Thank you. Represent Shiach. Let's go also look at, let's go to Genesis 4, 1 through 7.
Genesis 4 verse 1. And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived, and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from Yahuwah. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Elohim, Yahuwah. And Abel, he also brought of the firstling of his flock, and of the fat thereof. And Yahuwah had respect unto Abel and to his offering.
Y'all ever notice that just like Cain and Abel, Jacob, Esau, Isaac, Ishmael, all of the youngest sons or the younger brothers, they were all shepherds?
Even Dawood.
Yep. Even King Dawood. So when we look at that, let's read that one more time, Dr. Ken. I want to point out something here.
No problem. Bereshit, or Genesis 4 verse 1. And Adam or Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived, and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from Yahuwah. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahuwah. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock, and of the fat thereof. And Yahuwah had respect unto Abel and to his offering.
It said Yahuwah had respect unto who? Abel and his offering. But you notice it didn't say that about Cain? Why didn't it say that about Cain?
Because Cain didn't get the first, like the ring of his.
Right, his offering wasn't the first fruit. And what else do you notice about this offering? What would have happened to the priest if he had brought an offering to Yahuwah that wasn't accepted? He died. Why wasn't Cain put to death? He brought an offering that wasn't acceptable to Yahuwah.
Because he wasn't a priest.
It wasn't so much he wasn't a priest, but also Cain was even given another opportunity to bring the correct offering. But remember, when we started out the lesson, we said there were offerings that were required, and there were offerings that were voluntary offerings or free will offerings. A required offering, he'd have been put to death.
This is just a free will offering.
Yep, the burnt offering is a free will offering. It's voluntary. So you know, anybody else that had been dragging them from out, that had to get the road boys, they'd be dragging, they'd be pulling them.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start bringing the lesson to a close right there, and we're gonna pick up next week, and we're gonna look at the offerings some more and go deeper into those and get a more thorough understanding before we jump into Isaiah 53. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
So at this time, we're gonna open the floor for questions or.
No, I'm asking, you want me to cut this off or keep this on?
There was a question on, you said there was a question?
Oh, yes. Here, I screenshotted it. Because it wasn't on the comment section. But someone basically said, is Jacob's trouble happening or is it going to happen? Or is it going, he said, is Jacob's trouble been happening or is it going to start happening?
It depends on how you want to look at it. Jacob has had trouble ever since he's been brought here. But prophetically speaking, Jacob or Yaakov would be entering into that cycle. I would say that Jacob's troubles, I would say they are beginning to take place. And right now, what you're dealing with is, I think the last time I did the lesson, we were talking about how when Jacob's troubles begin, the key to understanding Jacob's trouble is the woman and the birthing pains. And the womb of that woman is the land where Jacob resides. And so I think we were talking about when a woman first gets impregnated and she goes through what are called trimesters. And there's a period of time when a woman goes through what we call false labor. Some people, my mom used to call it Braxton Hicks. For years, I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. Braxton Hicks. So, with Braxton, you want to explain that to us, Coty?
It's not labor in itself. It's just premature contractions that happen, but it's not going to bring forth the baby at that point.
It's kind of like premature contractions, or what we call, I guess, I don't think false labor would be bad terminology for it. But what you have is, that starts, so what it does, it prepares the woman for what's to come. And it starts getting her ready. And so when you look at what's going on in America and across the world, you see the woman, she's very uncomfortable at this time. And that woman will be the nations. Not only America, but all of these nations. If you really go look at what's going on, whether it be America, go look at any European country or nation, go look at even in China or different places, you need to go look at Israel. Wherever we are, it is really causing problems for that particular nation. But the reason everything is focused on America so is because America is the light or the leader of these nations. The other nations are influenced by America. Although they're not as powerful or they don't hold the same stature as America, America greatly influences all nations. Everybody wants to come where? To America. This is why the Most High is going to deal with America the way He's going to deal with America. Because when He lowers the boom, when He gets to bringing Israel out or sending the labor pains, it's going to be the nation that's the greatest is what's going to cause the other nations to fall in line. It's kind of like where now all of a sudden you start reading about, I don't care, any internet site you go to, you start seeing articles about what? Reparations. You turn on the news, reparations. You go to YouTube, reparations. You start hearing about the ADOS, African Descendants of Slave movement and stuff. All of this is for a reason. All of this is to just start the conversation and to get the acknowledgement out that, hey, you know what? Yeah, we did you wrong. You are slaves. And it gets them to acknowledging and talking about it. All the while knowing they're not going to do anything about it. They're going to make every excuse as to why you can't get what's rightfully due to you. Well, slavery was over a century ago, over 100 years ago, so why are we still talking about it? We got to move on from that. The next thing you hear is, well, I'm third, fourth, and fifth generations removed from slavery. I didn't have anything to do with that. I wasn't here. I never owned a slave. That's the second thing you hear. Not knowing that the wealth they have is generational and it will pass down. The disparity between income between blacks and whites is kind of equivalent to a white family having $100 and a black family having $5. That's crazy. And it was all because of slavery. Well, you know, the Constitution, it has changed, and there have been amendments to make everybody feel what? Equal. And so racism, you know, that's of the past. Yeah, they could even say we're 100 years or over 100 years since slavery been abolished. And they said, well, I didn't own a slave. Yeah, but what came after slavery?
Jim Crow.
Well, what about before Jim Crow? Most people forget about Reconstruction.
Oh, yeah.
You had Reconstruction. You had Jim Crow. Segregation. And that touches everybody. It's not just slavery itself. It was slavery, and not only that, that institution of slavery, what comes from it, they even wove it into the fabric of their judicial system in America to make sure there was always unequivalency between the former slaves and the slave masters or the ruling class. So what's happened with that is all of that's bringing about acknowledgement. Because let me tell you something, the Most High doesn't ever just destroy a people or a nation. He always gives them the opportunity to what? Make things right first. Did he just go into Egypt and destroy it?
Nineveh.
He didn't go into Nineveh and just destroy it. He didn't go into Egypt and just destroy it. He didn't go into Sodom and Gomorrah and just destroy it. He gave the people what? An opportunity or a chance to make things right. But when they refuse, that's when he lowers the boom. And so now that's what you see when it comes to Jacob's troubles. Now all of a sudden you see things happen. And like I said, when that woman first goes into labor, her contractions, they're spread out. I mean, she might have a contraction every now and again. But the closer she gets to that delivery date, or it's time for that baby to come out, guess what? them things come quite frequent
And strong.
and stronger. And that's what you're dealing with. We've entered into Jacob's trouble. It started. That's why they're so uneasy right now. You ought to know about Jacob's trouble. You turn on your television, you find them shooting anybody else down unarmed in the streets and stuff. You haven't found law enforcement officers beating up on nobody else's children in classrooms and stuff. And so that's what you have to ask yourself, how's all of this injustice, I should say, why does it seem to be happening against just one group of people? Black men, women, and children. Not the African, not the Mexican, not the Chinese, not the Japanese, not the white. And now all of a sudden you got a pharaoh here that the people can follow. So people don't understand. Trump is a pharaoh. How do we know it? Egypt, when Israel was in Egypt, they lived peacefully in that land. It wasn't until a pharaoh that came on the scene that didn't know who what? Joseph. Then all of a sudden something happened. They became fearful. Now you got what? A nation that's fearful. First of all, they're dying breed, they're dying off. They're trying to figure out why so many whites and white people, the life expectancy of them is short. They're upset because a lot of their women are marrying and having interracial relationships, which is another factor that causes their breed to die out, to dissipate or disappear quickly. And it's one of the things where now all of a sudden, when you go back and read, when the scripture said that the Most High, Yahuwah, hardened Pharaoh's heart. I'm going to explain this to y'all one time. I'm going to explain it good. Now, in the church, when you read that, you tend to think that, okay, then Pharaoh might have been a good person. And all of a sudden, it was the Most High that hardened his heart and made him evil towards Israel. Nope. When you go look at that word harden, it's going to be explained to you that that hatred that was already there, he just magnified it and increased it. Now, you've been living all these past few years, and you've been going to school with Mary, Elizabeth, Becky, Rebecca, Biff, Poindexter. So, I'm going to get real group in there. And so what you have is, they've been able to keep this stuff dormant the way they really felt about you and how they really felt. And so many people have laughed and smiled in your face for the last 40, 50 years. Then all of a sudden, this idiot get elected president. And now all of a sudden, his feelings and his language towards minority, now all of a sudden, those same people, y'all don't find it straight that now they have all of a sudden a boldness and they don't mind letting you know how they feel? It's the Most High. He's hardened Pharaoh's heart. He sent Trump, he placed Trump in office for a reason. Trump is in office to wake Israel up. Because, you know, we walk hand in hand. He said, although you walk hand in hand with him, he said, the wicked shall not go unpunished. He said he's going to thrust a sword through him. And so what's happening now that Trump is in office, and they have a leader or a pharaoh who doesn't mind expressing how he feels, So what you think the people gonna do?
Gonna do the same thing.
They're gonna do the same thing. Now all of a sudden they'll shoot you down and kill you, but they know they're gonna get out of jail. And police brutality is at an all-time high. Because they know they can get away with it. They have codes now. I fear for my life. Only thing you got in your hand is a pencil sharpener. Not the pencil. But I fear for my life. Or the first thing they'll do is holler, stop going for my gun, stop grabbing my gun. But that's for a reason. And they do that because they know they can go right before their judges in their system and they're going to be released. But
And Moreh brought out in class on Wednesday is that I think in Chicago he said it is against the law now to videotape a police officer with your phone. So you can't. So if you videotape anything that goes on, you will be arrested.
yeah,
You see that? And that right there is actually going against the Constitution. Because in the Constitution, you have a right to the freedom of press. Exactly.
yep.
So slowly but surely, they doing away with the Constitution.
And you ever notice how a lot of these times, all of a sudden, all these damn millions of dollars they spent on these video cameras and stuff for the cops on their uniform, why 9 out of 10 times the videos aren't working?
They don't
Well,
work.
not only that, they actually turn them off.
They turn them off.
They actually turn the cameras off.
But that's what we're living in. We're entering into Jacob's trouble. And it's showing up. That's why we as a people have to be mindful. We have to start preparing. And coming up with some ideas how we can put ourselves in position to be prepared for it. We have to. Any more questions of Bob? Well, we're going to stand and we're going to have the blowing of the shofar. And Key going to pray us out.
Still up?
Yes, sir.
I hope you know this is my work phone.
Yeah, my bad.
Nothing to go on. Okay. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Slow-mo prayer.
Oh, I'm praying? Oh, okay. Yahuwah, I just want to come and thank you again for keeping your hand over this place and Baruch and Moreh with your words of wisdom through this next lesson. I pray that you write it upon our hearts and that we may think on it this week and you keep us this week, that way we may be able to meet here again. Pray that you keep us throughout this day and help us to remember that it's Shabbat. You first Son, precious set apart name. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.